Wanting to gain all knowledge of the human race in preparation for Operation Impending Doom 2, Zim was researching different types of humans like babies, kids, teenagers, adults, and next on his list were the elderly. After asking his computer for a good elderly subject, it led him to the middle of nowhere. At a small farmhouse, Courage was resting upon a chair with his caring owner Muriel. Courage was having a pretty relaxed day, up until he heard a large crash outside the house. Eustace looked up from his newspaper, angry, and looked out the window to see an alien spacecraft had landed on his property. Courage saw the small green humanoid exit the cockpit and screamed in response. Zim then started yelling at the house. "Hand over that old larva woman, or get destroyed by Zim!" Unwilling to part with his owners, Courage swallowed his fear and prepared to defend Muriel.
"The things I do for love."
So, with stats equalized between the two, can Courage save Muriel and defeat Zim, or will Zim triumph?
We interrupt this program to bring you Courage, the Cowardly Dog Show, starring Courage, the Cowardly Dog!
Here comes Max, back at it again, showing us the grim reality that heroes can never win. Showing us that cartoons can't save half the universe from a mad titan by playing basketball, ghost hunters can't catch a psychotic killer ghost, and a slab of clay can't save an innocent child from a robotic mercenary. And now he's trying to show us that a dog can't save the only family he has left from some alien invader. You monster. But don't worry folks, I'll make sure the good guys come out on top this time, when my name is Honey Lulu. And it's not. Hey everyone, I'm your friendly neighborhood Larry Winwood, and I'll be discussing why Courage the Cowardly Dog will be able to protect Muriel from the evil irken known as Zim. I think it should go without saying that Courage is basically used to this type of scenario at this point. I mean, he deals with paranormal stuff almost every other day. He's faced evil spirits, zombies, pirates, wild animals, dragons, monsters, eggplants, mummies, kaijus, little gods, and yes, even aliens. Alien chickens, alien ducks, alien bears, alien worms, alien parasites, and even a giant alien robot. And Courage has always come out on top. These aliens had access to things like ray guns, mind control devices, spaceships, and plenty of other stuff, so I don't think there's anything in Zim's arsenal that would be new to Courage. Heck, in some cases, Courage actually uses the aliens' weapons against them, quickly learning how to use these devices for his own benefit. If he can adapt to using those weapons, what's stopping Courage from using Zim's own tech against them? If Courage can get his paws on Zim's Voot Cruiser, then Zim is done for. It also helps that Courage is clearly much smarter than Zim is. Sure, Zim may be more intelligent in a technological sort of sense, but in terms of strategy and quick thinking, he's got nothing on Courage. Courage has shown multiple times throughout the series to be able to quickly think of ideas on the fly, creating traps for his opponents to run into, using the environment to his advantage, or just using his foes' abilities against them. Thanks to the fact that Zim is very ignorant and naive to basic human culture, and is very prideful, Courage would have a lot to work with in terms of being able to trick Zim. Honestly, I just don't see any real way Zim could kill Courage. Sure, technically the durability of both characters are the same since stats are equalized for this debate, but unlike Zim, Courage has incredibly high toon force that allows him to regenerate from basically any means of harm. Falling from great heights, getting burned, getting frozen, electrocution, getting torn apart, getting beaten, being liquefied and turned into gas, and getting turned into little ashes. And he's suddenly perfectly fine in the next shot a few seconds later. Heck, even Muriel is getting in on this, surviving getting crushed by large hammers and boulders, long falls, and even getting her bones removed one by one. In the episode Courage vs. Mecha Courage, Courage is faced with a robotic version of himself who's basically designed to be better than him in every single way. At the end, they had a gladiator match where Mecha Courage beat the ever-loving crap out of Courage, crushing him, winning him over, blasting with water, stretching him, and throwing him around. But no matter how much he tried to put him down, Courage always got back up. He survived to the point where the robot overheated and exploded. This shows us Courage is more than capable of outlasting any machine, even ones designed to be superior to him. So Zim really doesn't have any real way to put him down. On the topic of toon force, while Zim may naturally have a larger arsenal to work with, thanks to Courage's hammer space, he can summon just about anything he needs for any specific situation. Flamethrowers, chainsaws, chemicals, binoculars, explosives, disguises, boxing gloves, giant fans, scuba gear, lances, motorcycles, and even a ray gun capable of disintegrating his foes. Also, if the situation calls for it, Courage is also much better at close quarters combat. Not only is he a skilled sword fighter, but he's also very skilled in hand-to-hand combat, as he was trained by the Empress of China herself in the ways of martial arts, and was skilled enough to go toe-to-toe with the evil Empress in close-quarters combat, being very quick and nimble, and was able to outsmart her and deflect her own lasers right back at her. We've never really seen Zim do much in terms of actual hand-to-hand combat before, so if he were to try to fight Courage normally, he wouldn't stand a chance. While some people may think he's just some coward, Courage has shown many times to be able to push through his fears and do what's right, even if he knows he's not gonna like it. He has a never give up attitude, especially when it comes to protecting Muriel, so even if Zim gets his hands on her, Courage will still come after him in order to save her. These personality traits are much better than Zim, who is always known for underestimating his opponents, and the fact that at times he doesn't seem to notice whenever he's backed into a corner. Zim is known for always falling apart and breaking down when things don't go right for him, and this can cause him to make mistakes. Like the time he thought it'd be a good idea to throw Dib back into the explosion in order to put it back at normal speed, or when he replaced his brain with a squeaky toy. This shows that Zim doesn't work too well under pressure, unlike Courage, who is shown in even dire situations to be able to keep a level head and always think of good plans on the fly. So all in all, while Zim may be a formidable opponent, there isn't anything Zim really has that would be new for Courage. Courage has plenty of experience in fighting aliens and using their tools against them, and is generally shown to be much more level-headed and smarter in drastic situations. And Zim doesn't really have any real way to bypass Courage's Toon Force regeneration. So I see Courage being able to trick Zim and outlast his technology and save Muriel from Zim's evil clutches. The result was obvious, you fool!
I've been expecting you, Larry! For the glory of the Irken Empire, I will be arguing for Zim! Today, I'll explain why he has what it takes to get rid of this stupid dog who's making him look bad. Time to rain some doom down upon my doomed enemy. First off, while Courage's cartoony body will certainly be abnormal to Zim, it isn't something he can't take care of. In some areas, Zim's alien body even matches the cartoon body of Courage. Sure, Courage has regeneration great enough to return from mush and other such injuries, but Zim's regeneration can do that too. He's come back from being reduced to a mush pile on several occasions, and he's been torn to shreds before, yet he was able to come back immediately afterwards. So, it's going to be tricky for Courage to actually put the Invader down. It'll be tricky for Zim to put Courage down too, but he actually has the equipment necessary to pull it off. Zim actually has a few ways he could mess with Courage's mind. With his pack, he can steal Courage's brain in a flash of light, replacing it with a can of poop instead. I can definitely see someone as sneaky as Zim pulling this off, climbing around in the dark with his spider legs. If Courage tries to take Zim's pack off of him, it will go into emergency attachment protocol, where it will attach Zim's consciousness into whatever is nearby, which would be Courage. So that's not a very smart move. Zim could also use his pod to control Courage's body from the inside and destroy his brain, like what he wanted to do with Dib in the past. Except this time, Courage doesn't have the technology to actually defend himself, so he'll just become brain dead soon. But if Zim wants to embrace the destructive force of nature that he is, he could unleash a gigantic water balloon on Courage to drown him. Or he can even outright blow up the planet to destroy Eustace, Muriel, and Courage while Zim escapes in the Voot Cruiser. That's a pretty extreme response to a dog that just got on his nerves, but Zim is willing to wage intense wars on bees, so I could see him getting to this level of aggressiveness. For other methods of defeating Courage, Zim could trick Courage onto a bus with Eustace and Muriel, which will in fact send them to a room with a moose for all of eternity. Courage doesn't have nearly as much hacking skill as Dib, so he wouldn't be able to prevent this if he got on board. You may argue that Courage wouldn't be tricked by someone as dim as Zim, but that's where you're wrong. Zim is arrogant and often gets in his own way due to that, but he's still a very cunning individual. He's been able to best intelligent foes like Tak, and even an alternate reality Dib that had previously taken down his Zim as well as the entire Irken armada. Yet, Zim ultimately outsmarted and defeated him. He was able to manipulate a group of people into getting him out of his cell by giving them a rousing speech about hope and not giving up, just so he could use them as a ladder. And he was able to deduce that the planet jackers had taken Earth through deductive reasoning. He has tricked Dib into traps on multiple occasions, and was able to convince his entire class to turn against Dib and feel sympathetic towards Zim. Courage has taken pity on and even befriended scary-looking people in the past. Zim could potentially trick Courage into thinking he's a nice alien, and just needs Eustace and Muriel for research on Earth, before he does something horrible and it's too late to save them. Zim could also trick Courage into opening a present that replaces his eyes with robotic ones, and make Courage think that a squirrel is actually Zim. Courage is pretty reckless. Most of the time he isn't getting out of the way of damage, he's taking the damage. So Zim would likely have a few opportunities to get Courage with his weapons, like the present. I think Zim is very likely to experiment on Eustace and Muriel once he gets his hands on them, potentially even replacing their brains with squid brains. If Courage manages to get the two back, they'll be back as mindless zombies, which probably isn't a victory for the Cowardly Dog. I mean, Courage has outright failed to save Eustace and Muriel before, like when they got turned into puppets and Courage just had no solution. That was a pretty dark ending. That kind of haxy stuff is well within Zim's capabilities. He could turn them into baloney even. Zim could also take Eustace and Muriel away in the Voot Cruiser, and Courage would be unable to follow them. In remembrance of Courage past, the old couple were about to be sent to the moon in a rocket, and it was shown that if the rocket had taken off, Courage would have been unable to get them. Plus, even though stats are equal between Zim and Courage, the Voot Cruiser is still much faster than them both. And Zim could use this to fight against Courage faster than he can fight back, using his lasers and electric balls. He could even potentially launch Courage himself into space, similar to how he dealt with Ultra PP. Courage also can't use his computer to research Zim because nobody on Earth knows about him but Dib, and nobody believes in Dib. There wouldn't be much for Courage to find, besides maybe a confusing video where Zim's eating waffles. It also helps that Zim has help. His robot minions consist of Gur, Mini-Moose, and his robot parents. All of them could fend off against Courage while Zim is experimenting on Eustace and Muriel. If Zim gets Gur to go into duty mode, I could see him actually seriously damaging Courage, what with his large arsenal and fighting skills. Courage previously failed to win a fight against the robot dog, Mecha Courage. He only won by waiting out Mecha Courage's batteries. By the time Gur runs out of fuel, Courage will be too battered to go on, and Zim will have already won. Don't underestimate Mini-Moose either. He has the power to harness the dark power of space, and is the only known being in the universe who can do so. This is the kind of cosmic shit we're dealing with here. Courage is dealing with a threat far more destructive than he has before. Zim has laid waste to entire planets before. He destroyed half of the known universe. Kinda like that other alien I debated for. And is feared by his own leaders for how destructive he is. He's an unstoppable death machine, you know. He's definitely more dangerous than the space chicken, who just ended up shooting himself by mistake. Overall, I think Zim has the powerful technology and the cunning mind he needs to reign supreme.
Blah, blah, blah.
You better stop it with those stupid arguments, or else the fat lady gets it, saying. Yeah, saying. Wait, I'm trying to protect the fat lady. Well, anyways, he brought up some really neat arguments, but a dog's gotta do what a dog's gotta do, and unfortunately for Zim, Courage is the only dog here. I do agree that Zim does have a larger variety of methods he can use to try and steal Muriel away from Courage, but the majority of these plans require a lot of prep time in order to do properly, like finding a wormhole to the room with a moose or the giant water balloon. And they aren't really considered go-to options like his pack of Voot Cruiser, so it would be highly unlikely that he'd be able to use these methods in this circumstance. Even if we assume that he could use some of these methods, I believe Courage would have good counters to most of them, and wouldn't be so easy to trick as you believe. If he knows some weird, green, loud alien is coming to get his family, I doubt he would open some random present on the ground. If anything, I see Eustace taking the present away, call him a stupid dog, and then he'd have his eyes replaced instead, since that's typically what happens in this show. And if needed, he could just pull the robot eyes out and grow his own back like he has before. The water balloon wouldn't be enough to drown Courage, as he could just use his hammer space to get scuba gear for himself and Muriel, which seems to have a nearly infinite supply of air, despite the fact that it sometimes isn't even connected to his mouth. Cartoon logic, everybody. Speaking of cartoon logic, he can also just pull a plug in his basement in order to flood all the water like he has before. Sending him to space wouldn't do him any good either, as not only could he use his hammer space to get a spacesuit, But in the end of Mission to the Sun, we see not only Courage, but also Muriel and Eustace survive on Mars with no spacesuits. And if needed, Courage could just hit a ride on an asteroid like he did when he was stranded on the sun. The nail that turns you into baloney wouldn't be much of a hindrance either, as Courage has been turned into a gumdrop in a helicopter before and was perfectly fine the next episode, showing that he can survive transmutation and keep fighting. Heck, in the end of the episode, we see that both Dib and Zim are able to move and talk despite fully turning into baloney, so Courage should be able to too. The only thing Zim has that could possibly take Courage out would be his organ-stealing tech, but I doubt Zim will be able to pin him down and use it on him. Courage has dealt with enough alien crap at this point to know not to let any alien tech even touch his head, like the Space Chicken's plunger or the Space Duck's mind control helmets. So I don't see him being able to use it on him, especially if he's as quick as nimble as he was during his fight with the evil Empress. You say Zim could use stealth to be able to catch Courage off guard and use the organ stealer, but there's a problem with that. Where is he gonna hide in the endless plains that is the middle of nowhere? I don't think he's gonna be able to hide from Courage, and even then, Courage has been shown to be pretty good at hiding as well, like the time he hid multiple times from Dr. Leclerc. You say that Zim would be capable of tricking Courage to let his guard down since he's too trusting and merciful, but that isn't always the case. We've seen many times how careful and paranoid Courage is at the beginning of each episode. He always assumes something bad is going to happen. And he's already met a lot of people who try to act all friendly, like Dr. Gerbil or Cat, but he always keeps his guard up and suspicion high, so I doubt Courage would be fooled by Zim's friendly demeanor. Also, while in some cases he has been shown to show mercy to people like the Duck Brothers or the Weird Shadow, Courage has been shown to be willing to actually hurt and maybe even kill some of his enemies, like letting Doc Gerbil fall down a waterfall, letting the Cajun Fox get cooked alive, and even killing the Dark Empress herself. So this shows that Courage does have the ability to kill when necessary, as dark as that sounds.
The things I do for love.
As for Zim's robotic minions helping, I don't see that doing him any good either. Zim keeps his robot's parents at home, and only takes them out in very specific situations like when he needed to go to a parent-teacher conference, so I doubt he would have them here. As for Gur, while he is very dangerous in his duty mode, the problem is that Gur has been seen to easily get snapped out of that state, like the time Gaz just asked a question again to snap him out of it, or when he was knocked over.
You're terrible, Gur!
So it wouldn't be too hard for Courage to just knock him out of that state. And without duty mode, I see Gur being more of a hindrance than anything, constantly annoying Zim, sabotaging his tech, and things like that. And then finally, the mini-moons. While definitely a very powerful being able to teleport the Earth and open up a Philopus hole, the problem is that it needs to absorb a large amount of energy to pull this off. And it took all the kids in the world to hold hands with the membrane bracelets to power it, which I don't see happening here. Speaking of help, Courage would actually be able to ask plenty of useful people to help him out if need be, unlike Zim, who would have absolutely no one to call since everyone hates his guts. Or I guess hates his squealy spoof? I don't know. The Tallest and the other Irkens definitely wouldn't help him since he's considered an outcast, and I highly doubt that Dib would help him. Sure, they've worked together before, but that was only to defeat the greater evil sort of thing. I doubt if Zim knocked on Dib's door and said, "Dib, I need your help to abduct a human elderly person!" Dib would be on board with it. On the flip side, Courage has plenty of people he could call for assistance. If he needs any extra muscle, he could bribe Mr. Mouse with cheese and money to beat the crap out of Zim. He could call Shirley, who has access to a wide variety of magic to help Courage out. If Courage happens to lose sight of Zim and Muriel, she would be able to track them down with a crystal ball like she did with Courage's yo-yo. She could summon a giant starfish to go after Zim until he gives up Muriel, or she can cast a rain cloud over Zim. While it may not be too harmful to humans, it will definitely be bad for Zim, who basically starts to burn alive when he's met with water. And while he did find a way to counteract this weakness in the weakening, it isn't a permanent fix, and we see in later episodes that he still burns from water every now and then, so this would still be very effective against them. Even Muriel can be of some assistance if necessary. Sure, most of the time she's considered a helpless damsel in distress, but in some instances, we actually seen her be able to handle herself quite well. Like I said earlier, she also has access to some Toon Force durability, being able to survive her bones getting removed, getting crushed, and even surviving in space. She's been capable of defending herself before, like when she was able to fight off a giant spider in the Cat's motel, and has even saved Courage before from people like Cat or possessed Eustace with nothing more than a smack from a rolling pin. He's also been shown to be able to call off the military before, even once bribing a general into having him airstrike a piano on someone. If possible, he could even trick Zim into following him and lead him to Area 51 or the government, since he has been there before. If he were to lure him there, he could easily have them capture Zim, and then Zim will be the one getting tested. Or how the turntables. He could possibly even bribe them into giving him a spaceship to use like they did in the mission to the sun. That way if Zim decides to take this into outer space, Courage can go after him. Speaking of spaceships, you saying that Courage wouldn't be able to go after the Voot Cruiser because he wasn't able to follow the rocket that took his parents is an unfair comparison. Courage was only a wee lad when he lost his parents and didn't nearly have as much experience in Toon Force as he has now. Besides, since Zim's base is here on Earth, Courage would still be able to go after him, whether it be by using a vehicle like a motorcycle or Eustace's truck, acting as a stowaway and hanging onto the ship, or even just going by foot, being that we've seen him be able to run to other continents before without getting tired. And like I said earlier, there's a chance that Courage could hijack the Voot Cruiser from Zim, as Courage is used to using alien tech against people. He would also be capable of destroying the Voot Cruiser as well, as his hammer space has been used to summon bombs capable of destroying spaceships before, like against the alien Brain Visitor. He would also be capable of infiltrating Zim's lab if needed, being that he has experience breaking into banks, Dr. Zalos' tower, evil organizations, and even Area 51. Zim's regeneration is better than I initially thought, but unlike Courage, Zim has many physical weaknesses that Courage could exploit. Like I already said, Zim is weak to water, being that it basically burns him on contact. He's also allergic to many types of earth food, typically most types of meat like ribs and bologna. He's also very afraid of germs, believing that they could be used to kill aliens. So if Courage could uncover all these flaws, it would easily make Zim much more easier to defeat than vice versa. And if all else fails, either with hypnosis or using the Space Duck's mind control helmets, he could take control of Zim's mind, telling him to turn good, leave planet Earth for good, or just making him a servant to much more passively dispose of them. So overall, while Zim does have veritable versatility on his side, all Zim's best chances would either require a lot of prep time, Courage wouldn't fall for, Courage would have counters for, or just all of the above. Courage will have far more effective help if necessary, and while both have high Toon Force regeneration, Zim still has many physical flaws that Courage could easily exploit. Courage may not be perfect, and does indeed have his flaws, but I believe it's with these many imperfections that Courage will be able to come out on top against this alien invader, and save his new home.
Stupid dog! You made me look bad!
Lies! They filthy earth boy lies!
Of course your inferior human brain didn't understand my complex reasons for siding with Zim. Now, witness my ingenious counter-argument! Okay, you can always say that Courage has gone up against aliens before, but he's never gone up against Zim, or any kind of Irken technology. Zim is very different from all of the other aliens that Courage has faced, with an odd physiology and a massive arsenal. Sure, Courage has dealt with a few sci-fi weapons before, but Zim has a good few that Courage hasn't ever faced, like an organ-replacing device strapped to his back. If Courage attempts to steal any weapons from Zim, he'll absolutely resist it, and will likely be able to blast Courage into ash if he gets too close. His spider legs have instinctively blasted foes before when Zim was scared, so he could at least keep Courage at bay if this happens. Zim is an expert at getting away from dangerous people who want his secrets, and can use his spider legs to get around quicker. Even if Courage attempts to be stealthy about it, Zim is constantly catching Dib, who knows Zim and his base much better, and yet consistently fails to take down Zim. You've brought up the idea that Courage would take away the Voot Cruiser, which I just don't buy. Courage wouldn't pilot the Voot Cruiser before Zim himself does. If Courage got Muriel before Zim put her inside the ship, then he'll just hide her back inside the house. If Zim gets Muriel on the ship first, he'll blast off. I can't see Courage getting on the cruiser if Zim blasts away faster than Courage can react. If Courage can hitch a ride on the back, Zim could easily have Gur fly out to throw Courage off. Or, if Courage gets on the front window of the cruiser, Zim could launch the window off like he did to Tack, and send Courage far away. Speaking of the Voot Cruiser, it also has a tractor beam Zim can use in order to just abduct the married couple and fly away. Zim doesn't even need to physically confront Courage, he just needs to take Eustace and Muriel. Once Courage starts fighting back, I feel like this would be Zim's next option. Just crash through the roof of the house, take the couple, and fly away. I also want to say that Courage isn't going to risk destroying the Voot Cruiser if Eustace and Muriel are inside. Zim has another way to kidnap the couple. Zim has a fast-working teleportation pad that brings himself and anyone nearby to his lab in a flash. He used it once to get out of the school bathroom and just immediately go to his lab. So he'd definitely be able to go back and get his tech if things are getting tricky with Courage. At that point, Zim can come back with mechs and some of the other weapons I brought up, like the water balloon. Or, he could teleport Eustace and Muriel to his base. So, Zim escapes with the couple. Now what? It'll take Courage a while to figure out where Zim's base is, which will give Zim ample time to experiment on Eustace and Muriel beyond repair, which is effectively Courage losing. But as for dealing with Courage himself, I think Zim can pull it off. Courage is seemingly impossible to kill, but he isn't hard to batter. With enough abuse, Courage can become too tired to go on, which would leave him defeated. From there, Zim can experiment on Courage, maybe by sending him to the sun like he did to some random chicken. Or maybe, at that point, Zim can just take Courage's brain. I mean, I feel like he'd actually want to do that. Courage is smarter than any dog that Zim knows, so he'd probably want to examine his brain and see what makes it different from other dogs' brains. You bring up mind control as something Courage can use, but Zim has shown that he can pull off mind control as well, like when he got a pimple and called it Pastulio. If he still has Gur with him, he can recreate Pastulio and mind control Courage instead. You've brought up a couple of ways Courage can resist Zim's technology, but this next piece of equipment is something he'd be unable to counter, and it's perhaps his strongest piece of equipment to date. While it is true that stats here are equalized, Zim is the only one here who can increase his stats. With Vortian Liquid Matrix MK2, Zim can buff himself to a ridiculous degree, to the point where he was eventually bending the fabric of space and tearing a hole in reality. Zim would likely keep this at his base, which I've said before he could make it to in a flash of light. With this, Courage is now incapable of harming Zim at all, and Zim would basically be able to thrash Courage around and take the couple by force. Getting back to our arguments about potential help for both sides, Gur is certainly bad at following specific orders, but when he's allowed to just go crazy and create chaos, he thrives. If Zim just tells Gur to mess with Courage, he'll probably keep Courage distracted for a long time. The problem with Courage asking for help is that, if he's running over to someone for help, it's already too late to save Eustace and Muriel. Zim would have them back at his base at that point, and will probably be doing some horrible experiment, like turning them inside out. You suggested that Muriel would fight back, but Muriel only fights back in specific circumstances, like if she thinks she's in danger. Luckily for Zim, Muriel is just about as oblivious as the rest of the humans, and oftentimes she can't tell if she's in danger, even when it's very blatant. She would definitely fall for Zim's human disguise, and buy any excuse he comes up with. Come to think of it, if Zim just claimed to be somewhat related to Muriel, she'd probably just let him inside the house in the first place. If Courage tried to attack Zim, Muriel would probably reprimand him. From there, Zim can trick the couple into a trap, like my room with a moose idea. If the government gets involved, Zim can don his human disguise and turn the Voot Cruiser into a floating pig. Humans, and even government officials, have shown before that they are too stupid to see through things like that. Shirley's magic cloud sounds bad at the start, but Zim has been shown to actually use paste on a pretty regular basis in order to counteract his weakness to water. The rain cloud would annoy him, but not hurt him, and eventually Zim would find a way to disperse the clouds with some technology of his. When it comes to his other physical weakness, Courage has to find out about his food weakness to begin with, and Dib is the only one who knows it. Courage doesn't know Dib, and I doubt Courage is just gonna think about chucking food at Zim on his own. He'd most likely throw some useful weapons. Finally, I want to bring up the possibility of vengeance. Zim is a very angry little guy, and if someone wrongs him, he'll stop at nothing to strike back against them. If Courage successfully thwarted Zim's plans and rescued Eustace and Muriel, Zim would most likely plot a way to get Courage back. Since I don't think Courage can kill Zim with his insane regeneration, I think Zim will be able to cook up a scheme at his lab, and that's pretty dangerous. Zim could potentially place Courage in an alternate reality simulator and make Courage think he's living a normal peaceful day, when in reality he's hooked up to some machine, and Zim is busy testing on Eustace and Muriel. So let's recap. Zim can kidnap Eustace and Muriel faster than Courage can react. Zim can experiment on them to the point that Courage won't be able to fix them. Zim can mess with Courage's mind in a variety of ways, even being able to make him brain dead. And Zim can become much stronger than Courage thanks to his powerful Irken technology. Zim has won! Praise me!
That's courage. Well, I hope you enjoyed the first part of this Galaxy Grudge match.
Phase 1 of my masterful plan to win a Galaxy Grudge match with Zim was a success! Come back for Phase 2! Leave your comments supporting who you think will win and we'll get back to this match.
Also, be sure to go to the description where a link to my channel is, as well as the Galaxy Video Ko-fi page, and the Multiverse's Discord server. The things I do for my friends.